Hey guys, welcome to my channel. A particularly beautiful Vanda has been blooming at our house for the past few weeks. In this video, let's enjoy these flowers while talking about how to make Vanda bloom, and some misunderstandings in the process of cultivating these orchids. I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you like this video, please thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with more friends. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please consider subscribing. We will talk about all different kinds of flowers in the future. Today's subject is this Vanda, with its blue-purple flowers. There are 2 flower spikes and a total of 13 flowers. The blooming flowers are very big and beautiful. Personally, I especially like Vanda, and I highly recommend this orchid species. Because Vanda orchids are very easy to grow, and they come with various gorgeous colors, and their flowers are huge. I purchased this one at an orchid show. Its flowers are pink on the top and yellow-green on the bottom. When I bought it, the roots of this orchid were covered with moss and algae. After our treatment, the orchid has now produced a lot of new roots. The new roots are wrapped around the wooden basket. The ends of the new roots are bright green, and they will eventually grow all the way down. Vanda roots are white when dry and green when watered. This Vanda bloomed last year, and its flowers were bright purple. They were especially nice. The flowers of this Vanda are lavender, and it just bloomed this spring. The flowers of this orchid are dark red and just opened a few months ago. This orchid was not blooming when I bought it. We cultivated it for over a year and it finally bloomed. The leaves of this orchid are generally healthy, and some dry parts are due to sunburn. That's how it was when we bought it. At that time, we wanted to pick a good one, but this one was the only one of this variety. So we bought this orchid, and overall it's pretty good. On this orchid, the newly grown leaves are much larger and longer than the original ones. We plant Vanda in wooden baskets and hang them to grow. Their roots dangle bare in the air. Normally, we buy Vanda like this, with their roots in plastic baskets. After we brought this one back, we didn't repot it because its root system was too developed and we didn't want to risk harming its root system by removing the basket. The other Vanda were smaller and had less developed root systems, so we transplanted them into this wooden basket very carefully. Some people will plant Vanda in pots or hydroponics. Neither method is ideal. Vanda are epiphytes, and in the wild, they are attached to big tree branches and the root system grows in the air. For these orchids, a well-developed root system is very important. For example, on this Vanda, the root system is longer than my arm. If we had planted it in a pot, this root system would not have developed so much. The second method is hydroponics. Orchids are not aquatic plants, so why should they be grown in hydroponics? We have visited many orchid exhibitions and nurseries. Regarding Vanda, we have never seen hydroponics being used in a professional setting. Those orchids which grow particularly well and are awarded prizes are typically not hydroponically grown. In my personal opinion, the best way to cultivate Vanda is to leave the roots exposed in the air. Moreover, a well-developed root system is beautiful and can be admired in its own right. Let's talk about how to make Vanda bloom. The first requirement is adequate water. Their root system is exposed to the air and therefore requires more water. If a Vanda lacks water, the leaves will wrinkle, it will grow poorly, and it will not bloom. Therefore, we need to provide adequate moisture. In a healthy Vanda, the leaves should look like this, relatively hard. If the leaves are soft and wrinkled, this means that it is dehydrated. When watering, the entire plant needs to be thoroughly soaked. You want to simulate rain like this. Right now it is late afternoon and the orchid has no direct sunlight. Water on the leaves in intense sunlight can concentrate the sunlight like a lens and burn them in certain conditions. When watering in the afternoon, make sure that the orchid dries out before dark. Water an hour or two before sunset. Because the weather is hot and dry in summer, we need to water more often. After the weather cools down, water it every morning. Regarding the frequency of watering, if it rains that day, you don't need to water the orchids. If the weather is hot and dry, then the frequency of watering needs to be increased to 2 or 3 times a day. Do not water at night. If the temperature is low at night, watering may cause bacterial or fungal infection. Another factor that affects watering frequency is the humidity. We can buy instruments that detect air humidity like this one, which costs about $30. The humidity shown above is now at 42%. Shown below the humidity is the temperature, which is now 84 Fahrenheit. Below the humidity and temperature, the highest and lowest humidity and temperature of that day will be displayed respectively. When humidity is higher than 50%, a Vanda's roots draw moisture from the air. When humidity falls below 50%, the orchid loses moisture. At this time, we need to increase the frequency of watering. Orchids need good air movement. In summer, I put my orchids outside when the airflow is better. In winter, when the orchids are indoors, I use several fans to increase the airflow. If the air moves, it reduces disease pressure from fungi and bacterial rots. Some people will soak the roots of Vanda in a basket for about 10 to 15 minutes to allow the orchid to absorb enough water. There are 2 drawbacks to this approach. First of all, for Vanda with a relatively developed root system, placing the orchid in a bucket may break the roots of the orchid, which can lead to infection of the root tissue. Second, if several Vanda are soaked in the same bucket of water, a sick Vanda can infect other healthy orchids. Therefore, the best way is to water the orchid directly. The second factor that affects Vanda flowering is light. These orchids need plenty of light to bloom. Of course, if you put Vanda in a low light place, it will still grow well, but the leaves will become dark green and it will likely not bloom. If you want Vanda to bloom, give it plenty of light. These orchids can be placed in an east-facing position in summer, allowing it to receive morning sun. Because the morning sun is relatively weak, it is unlikely to burn the plants. In winter, Vanda can be placed by the south window. In summer, I hang my Vanda under a maple tree. Generally, there will be direct sunlight at 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and the sunlight will be filtered through the branches and the leaves. Make sure not to sunburn the orchid by giving it too much light. Sunlight is most intense in late June, so early summer can be especially dangerous for sunburn despite the lower temperatures. You can judge whether the light is suitable by observing the color of the orchid's leaves. If the orchid's leaves turn black, purple, or white, it is a sign of too much light. We can place the orchid in a slightly weaker light. Don't get too worried if your orchid gets sunburned. In general, placing the orchid in a place with low light will allow it to recover. Even if it cannot be restored, the leaves will have black spots, which is usually only a cosmetic problem and does not affect the growth of the orchid. Also, keep in mind that different Vanda will have different light requirements. A general rule of thumb is that the thinner the leaves, the higher the light level. So, thin-leaved Vanda, like the former Esconcentrum, prefer brighter light, while broad-leaved Vanda will burn more easily. The third factor that affects Vanda flowering is the temperature difference between day and night. In summer, I keep my orchids outside. Today, the temperature is 30 Celsius during the day and 20 Celsius at night. The temperature difference between day and night is 10 Celsius, which is good. If the orchid is placed indoors, the indoor temperature is relatively stable, and the orchid may not easily bloom without that variation. The fourth factor that affects Vanda flowering is fertilization. When an orchid grows well, it blooms. In summer, the peak season for orchid growth, it is more important to fertilize. We use this fertilizer. We fertilize once a week at half strength. Fertilize every 2 weeks or once a month in winter. I also sometimes fertilize with this Epsom salt, which we use once every season. There are magnesium ions in it, which are beneficial for photosynthesis and better for leaves. Do not apply organic fertilizer to Vanda, as it needs to be broken down in soil. This type will wash off before it is broken down enough to be absorbed. Apply readily absorbable fertilizer with low concentrations to avoid burning roots. I have heard good things about Dynagrow, but we have not had a chance to actually use it. We will try that fertilizer after we use up our current fertilizer. Pests and disease of orchids. All of my Vanda orchids have not been infected with any insect pest so far. Use this cocktail if you have problems with your Vanda or other orchids. This method needs to be used outdoors. When using it, take care to protect yourself, children, pets, etc. When using chemical treatments, do not water your orchids the day before. Apply the chemicals the next day and the orchid will fully absorb them. Do not water orchids for 24 hours after that. If they are watered, the pesticide will be washed away, affecting its effectiveness. The flowering period of Vanda can last for more than 2 months. When we find that a Vanda spike has begun to wither, we can cut off the flower branches, put them in a vase, and continue to appreciate them. This forces the plant to redirect energy to its roots and leaves or next blossom. It's normal during blooming for the roots to stop growing or even shrivel a bit. Vanda do not have pseudobulbs, so they store energy in their roots and leaves and draw on that energy to flower. Most Vanda will bloom freely throughout the year. The winter blossoms are less common. One type, the terry-leaved orchids, formerly known as Esconcentrum, bloom like clockwork in late spring. These orchids were recently moved into the Vanda genus due to their similar structure. Alright, this is today's video. I hope that it helps you. If you like this video, please thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with more flower enthusiasts. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave a message below. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and click the notification bell. Thank you for watching and see you next time.